So when we power on the TCL R655 for the first time, you're met with the typical Roku screen. We're going to select English, and then from there, they're going to ask us our region. We're going to select the United States. Next, it's going to ask us if we want to use it for home use or for store use. Now, I'm going to select store use so that I can access the store demonstration. But again, keep in mind this won't destroy the TV or change the results you are going to see later on. It's just a mode that you can toggle between. Now, as you get to the home screen, you are met with the familiarity of the Roku TV platform. So you can see the layout here, HDMI 1 through 4. You have AV, live TV, USB media player, and then it recycles again. You then have your settings options where you have your network options, you have remote and devices, accessibility, which comes with a few different options here, as you guys can clearly see. You have the TV settings, which we'll go into more in depth in a little bit here. You have the TV inputs, you have the audio, where then they show you sound settings as an option, audio input, or rather audio output, mounted. Whether it's mounted or not, you can, again, change the TV speakers to perform accordingly. Your volume menu, or rather your menu volume. So like system sounds, basically, if you hate this clicking, just go ahead and turn that off. And now it's quiet. You don't have that annoying nonsense. So if you wanted to find that, that's how you do that. Audio preferred language, English for me, I'm in the US here. We have digital output, digital format, right? Digital output format. You have pass-through, stereo, custom, auto, things like that. Dolby Atmos, you turn it on, activate those speakers, and then that's pretty much it. The home screen, you have shortcut options, and you can add shortcuts. And then, of course, the system information, which has about, control of the devices, languages, system updates, store settings, and advanced system settings and third-party licensing. So it's basically pretty much plug and play. You just kind of fire it on and it just does what it does. One area where this TV is not so plug and play is if you decide to go the route that a lot of people recommend you do and do the software update and take it online and do all that nonsense. Once it's done updating, which is a relatively quick process, it will take you to this menu here, which will ask you to activate your television. Of course, this means that you have to have a Roku account, and seemingly there's no way to bypass it. I can hit the home button, I can hit the back button, and it doesn't really do anything. Now, I think short of outside of maybe turning off the TV and turning it back on, you're pretty much locked into the screen. So we'll try to turn it off and we'll see if that does something differently. But as you guys can see, it does tend to make you, see, so there you go. You're right back to the same menu. You really are locked into just registering the TV. And I think that's one of the things, like, once you start going online, it starts becoming a whole lot less convenient out of the gate, which is something most reviewers probably aren't going to tell you when they're talking about how amazing everything is. They're not going to point out these inconveniences for everyday people. One thing you're going to want to do is go into the TV inputs, go under HDMI, and go down to HDMI mode. This is where you'll find things like ALLM, FreeSync, that kind of thing. Now, for me, I hate ALLM. I really don't like when it just switches to game mode just because it feels like it. So I turn that off. If I want it on, I'll do it myself kind of thing. So if you're one of those people that hate it always engage in game mode, then definitely turn that off here. And counteractively, if you want to activate FreeSync or things like that, that's how you get to it. And then, of course, under compatibility mode, this is basically the legacy HDMI 1.4. So they say auto is recommended, but I just use standard because why not? And again, this will allow you to be able to take advantage of different aspects of your next-gen gaming consoles or whatever. So if you need those things, that's just a little tip there. So let's dive a little bit further in depth. I'll see if I can't pull up a store demo. So since the store demo didn't play, I kind of triggered one of my own, and as you see, the black levels so far look pretty damn good. And again, this is out of the box, not really having to do anything or dial in anything. The black levels do fall in line properly. Colors, on the other hand, definitely need some work. Again, it's okay. It's not the worst I've ever seen, but definitely going to need some adjustment because things are just overly blue and a little bit dead. And oddly enough, I'm noticing that on this particular version of TCL 6 series, clarity so far isn't seemingly as good as it was on last year's model. Now again, I have not put any time into calibration yet. This is just an initial impression based off of what I'm seeing so far. But black levels are really good. There is no sign of any kind of blooming or anything like that, which I will always accept every day of the week. Now what I'm going to try to do is show you some of the picture settings that we have available here. So right now it's set to auto brightness. You can go darker, dark, normal, bright, or brighter. So this thing definitely gets really bright. I think this is every bit as bright as, honestly, the Hisense U8H. I'm going to have to actually test this now. That's exciting. Hopefully it's every bit as bright, but it's definitely more than bright enough with maintaining good black levels. I think that's the key here. It does nothing if you can get bright if your black levels fall apart. Like Sony, for example, with the X95K. No shade, it's just a fact that as far as mini LED goes, so far they're definitely doing about as bad as you could buy on the market right now. Where, again, Hisense did an amazing job, and now we see TCL knocking it out of the park. Baseball player, pun intended. Now, we're going to go and set this to, for now, I would say, I kind of like the way dark looks, as weird as that might sound for some people. I actually like the way dark looks, so I'm just going to leave it there. Now, this is the low power picture mode, but you have a movie mode, you have a normal mode, you have a sports mode, a vivid mode, and a gaming mode, which I absolutely hate. But either way, you do have some modes here. It's kind of underwhelming, I'm not gonna lie. I wish there was like a little bit more happening here, but I don't know. It's something we're gonna have to see with time. But for now, I'll set it to, I mean, honestly, low power looks the best out of the gate. So far, cinema mode just looks really ugly. Everything looks like it has jaundice. Not my kind of thing. Normal mode, I would say normal mode doesn't look so bad, but it just doesn't look as natural, I would say. Things kind of look over-exaggerated and there's a lot of clipping, where there's not a lot of that happening in low power mode. As far as sports mode, way too bright and just clipped. Same for vivid and game mode. It's just more of the same ugly jaundice nonsense. And there are some weird artifacts that I noticed as far as jagged edges around skin, so I'm definitely going to have to take a look and really see what this thing is capable of. But let's continue with showing you some picture settings here. We have some aspect ratio stuff here. That's pretty generic. Local contrast is set to high. That's their local dimming zones, so that's not to be mistaken for something like a contrast enhancer, which, again, can easily be mistaken for some sort of, contrast boosting technology. But again, it's just local dimming zones. Again, they really should work on the naming of that, because that's kind of really stupid to call local contrast call it local contrast instead of local dimming. Like, it makes no sense. But it is set to high, and it's doing a decent job, a good job, so no problems there. Dynamic contrast is the opposite. I don't know why I struggled so hard with that. Is the opposite of what local contrast is. It is the artificial nonsense, and it is not available while, what does it say? While you're in game mode or whatever. Basically, there are conditions where you can't use it, so that's really weird. I don't know if I've seen that before, where you can't just access dynamic contrast. I'll have to experiment with that and see what's going on there. As far as color modes, you have normal, warm, and cool. This is probably one of the more underwhelming aspects. You're usually supposed to have a warm 1, a warm 2, maybe an expert 1 and an expert 2, and then maybe like, I don't know, like a neutral mode somewhere. But this is just kind of like 3 modes will do you. It's starting to look a lot more budget as far as their offerings, considering their immediate competitor, which is Hisense, where you do get more color modes than this. But warm is going to be the best one, in my opinion. That's the one I'm going to rock with. Action smoothing is basically the motion processing that the television has. So I'm going to set it to high because I like motion processing. People turn it off. That's not my cup of tea. I don't like judder or jitters, so I do enable that. And of course, we'll test to see how the motion processing handles cleaning up motion. Now, the other thing that we have is action clarity, which it's just a couple with the action motion, or the action smoothing, where basically, in a nutshell, it's just going to try to mitigate the motion blur. It's just like a blur reduction feature. They just are getting fancy with the names being kind of gimmicky. You can turn it off or not. But I'm going to set it to high because let's hope that they do good things. Now, LED motion clarity is your black frame insertion technology. Fortunately, turning it on has no noticeable flicker, which is a very good thing. So I definitely think this would probably be more viable for a lot of people who want better black levels even, because it does increase the black levels and the detail, as you see, substantially just from that to that. It's a big difference. So I think that would be viable right there. But I'm going to have to experiment with it, obviously, calibrate, see what we can do, and see how much brightness you lose versus not using it. But with it on, it looks a lot closer to OLED, and I actually really prefer the look of it with it on, especially because unlike Samsung, it doesn't have any noticeable flicker. And the same for Hisense. Unlike Hisense, which is its immediate competitor, it does not have any flicker. That is going to be huge if it can be viable for creating settings that actually work and look good and all that fun stuff. So again, stuff that we're going to figure out. And again, game mode, self-explanatory, we know what that is. Then there is the reset. If you don't like everything, then you have the apply all. That's, again, self-explanatory. Fine-tuned picture. That's where we have more of the backlight, the brightness, the contrast, the more custom things. But notice how you are missing stuff still, which is your noise reduction technologies. That kind of stuff, and your gamma is going to be locked behind the stupid Roku app, and there's no way around that. For me, personally, as a gripe, this is one of the reasons why I hate Roku TVs probably more than any other TV on earth, because I do not understand how you could build a television and then have the brain in an entirely separate part of the television. Like, why would you do that? Like, just build it all on the SoC or the chipset. I mean, like, it's dumb to me to have to go and do extra work to get the same thing, but I'll digress. Either way, you guys can get an idea now of what the picture quality looks like, kind of like out of the box. You don't have a master calibrator in your corner. You're not going to hire a professional calibrator to come out and calibrate, and you don't have tools and instruments to do this yourself. Well, this is pretty much the picture that you're going to get out of the box. Looking at it, with an expert eye and weighing in with an expert opinion, it's not bad. It's just not all that impressive. It can be taken further. There's a lot more that it can do, but I am going to be very honest and let you know, like, there's some funky stuff happening with some artifacting here on texts I'm noticing and around edges. So I'm really going to be scrutinizing that a lot because I'm seeing that early on, and that kind of has me worried for how it's going to stack up against some other TVs. And the lack of clarity, generally, it's kind of a blurry TV so far. So hopefully that's not the case as I get into more stuff, but I am not impressed so far. It's okay. The black levels are nice, but again, I'm not getting the clarity that I would have expected from mini LED, so I don't know. We'll have to figure something out. But either way, we're going to dive deep and we're going to see what we can do. Thank you guys so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty. Smack a like on this video. And hey, you guys know what to do. Keep it locked and sound off with feedback so I can keep it rolling with the content you want to see. Until the next video, I'll see you guys later.